Welcome everyone to the Flying High Club here at the Aviation Festival Asia in Singapore. We're delighted to bring you another series. And as always, we bring you the most interesting of topics and the most interesting of guests. And I think the first one we're going to start with here is definitely that. So welcome Hadar Shavet, Director of Deep Learning at Fetcherr. So first of all, we're going to find out what deep learning is and what you're directing. And secondly, more about Fetcherr and what Fetcherr is doing in the aviation space. So welcome to the Flying High Club.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So give us a bit of a brief introduction, a bit about yourself. And then, like I said, what do we mean by deep learning? Sounds interesting. Yeah. And we'll get on to then Fetcherr as well.
Okay. So thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Always great to be in Singapore. So yes, my name is Hadar. Director of Deep Learning basically means that I oversee research and development of Fetcherr's proprietary AI model, which is the large market model. So it's the model that is governed decision-making with artificial intelligence. Deep learning, as a fun fact, is just a branch within artificial intelligence that utilizes neural networks in order to make meaningful predictions by training on historical data set. This is kind of the gist of it.
Okay, fine. So, this is important, right? We hear about AI, and actually, it's a lot more deeper than that, so to speak, but pardon the pun, it's bigger than that. And I think we'd love to delve into that with you here as well. So not only educate our audience, but again, how that's being leveraged now, particularly at Fetcherr.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Okay. So first of all, I'm going to start. We're here at the Aviation Festival Asia. Sadly, a bit disrupted because of what's been going on. But I think in the aviation industry, we're used to headwinds and we managed to work our way around them. What's jumped out at you straight away when you've been walking around?
Yeah, so I think one thing that stands out is that there's a lot of technology happening here. So I think that's encouraging to see that legacy airline companies are trying to understand how to come into the era of artificial intelligence and how they could incorporate technology into their pipelines. It's something that I see as truly valuable when stepping into the next step of what we can do in airline to improve revenue and to make more optimal decisions. So it's really nice to see that.
Perfect. Okay. And we're talking to you as a startup, but if you were on the other side, an airline, walking around here today, what would you be paying attention to apart from Fetcherr?
So the one caveat of having all this technology, especially in the AI era, is it's trying to pinpoint and focus yourself into the things that's important. So what I would really do if I were on the other side of the things is actually dive into the technologies and talk with the people and hear from them. How do they track some of the pain points that we have in the airline industry? Because it's not only about revenue, is it though? It's about how to manage network, how do you treat inventory, and all of that is the encompassing story that an airline company really needs to tackle. And if a person from the other side of the technology side could actually tell me a meaningful insight and how they utilize their technology to make meaningful impact, that would be very interesting, and I would pay attention to that.
Perfect. And I think you've made a very salient point there, because actually from conversations we have here, both from airline CEOs, but equally founders, is exactly that, marrying that relationship that, are you actually solving a problem that I have?
Exactly.
And do you understand it?
Exactly.
Sometimes you can walk around conferences here, great stands, great conversations, but actually, are they solving a problem you have? So I think you make a very, very good point. And that brings us on to exactly what you guys do at Fetcherr. So for the average Joe, let's start with that. What is Fetcherr and what do you do?
Yeah. So at the core of Fetcherr technology stands the large market model. It's our proprietary model for decision making. Now, decision making is broader from pricing and making pricing decisions. But for the most part, what Fetcherr is responsible for is the bottom line, is generating revenue by utilizing artificial intelligence and making meaningful insights on how we can trace back insight from the data in order to make meaningful actions. So this is what Fetcherr does as a whole, and it utilizes advanced technologies and huge understanding of data and data pipelines in order to make meaningful insights for every client.
Yeah. How do you find airlines respond to that? Traditional revenue management people, they're not used to that data being taken away from them and decisions being made on their behalf. So how do you find those conversations?
Yeah, so one thing we found initially a difficulty that we now feel that we have solved quite substantially is exactly this friction point between migrating from legacy pipeline to pipeline that build on top of AI that sometimes could be counterintuitive. decision making that analysts have made now seems unintuitive when they are faced with an AI that so you might decrease the price in a place where seasonality might have been high. So what we have identified that it is not only to kind of full-fledged AI system, but also to provide an end-to-end traceability that allows the analyst that sits at the end of the decision making to make a meaningful analysis, not only to what was predicted, but why was that prediction even taking place. So what we understood at Fetcherr that once you have analyzed and provided explainability measures to the client, it is much easier for them to understand the intricacies of the model that sometimes is talked about like a black box, but we're transitioning this black box into a glass box by providing a data-driven, backed-up decision-making that really traced into the meaningful reasons a decision to price a specific product, a specific price was made. And I think this was a key novelty that here at Fetcherr we uncovered alongside our clients as design partners at the beginning. And now it has been streamlined to something that is very much meaningful. And we see how this builds trust with our clients that tend to oversee less and less of the manual work and allow the models to do what they do best, which is to price products optimally.
You know, I love that actually. The analogy you use there of the turning the black box into the glass box, I think that's a fantastic way of positioning it actually. It's exactly that, because I think as technology moves forward, you know, legacy ways of working, you feel vulnerable. As you said, it's that trust, right? But actually what you're saying here is actually, although we're providing that technology, we're actually showing you how it works. Yeah. So you can lean in as opposed to, you know, the worries you have, our counterintuitive ways of working. That's fantastic. I love that. That's great. Okay. So what are the biggest limitations for traditional airline pricing and revenue management systems today?
Oh, that's actually a great question. So, you know, I might need to think about that.
Yeah, because my thing would be is, look, again, I've worked for a legacy airline before, you know, they're making good money. You know, they're making good revenue. You know, why fix something that isn't broken? Is the argument I would make, you know? So, what in your mind would you say that Fetcherr is allowing you to do, that, airlines are not able to do?
So yeah, I do want to kind of remember to recollect with the audience, you know, the airline industry and the infrastructure that was invented for airline was invented in the 60s. This is something that we need to acknowledge. Yeah. And by transitioning to more recent technology, we allow for the system to not leave revenue on the table. This is a phrase I like to use. So while indeed revenue is entering, and, you know, companies are quite satisfied for the most part, at least some of them, there is always room for improvements, because I will tell you right now, if you trace back how pricing policies are looking like, and you compare it with pricing policies that were decided by an AI system, you will see the difference good, and it's quite substantial. This is the main reason for this to happen, is because every information or every byte of data that is fed into the model, where it's global market dynamics, the analysis of competition, the competitive landscape, this is something that happens in such a fast cadence and with such high granularity that the legacy pipelines for pricing could not recollect. And decisions, when they are made in this resolution, are always optimal compared to legacy. And I think that this is what airline revenue management should look like when they're stepping into the future.
It goes back to my point though. This sounds scary. I'm losing all control here. Effectively, I'm coming to you and saying, help me optimize revenue, forecast pricing. Yes, you're giving me a glass box, but I don't know what's going on in this glass box.
Yeah.
So how, again, it goes back to that relationship. How are you addressing my vulnerabilities as an airline?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. And one thing and one concern that I could truly resonate it, if I give the decision making to an AI, how do I know that my guarantees are being committed? And one thing that I will say is that here at Fetcherr, we do understand that AI is nothing without the business constraints provided by our clients. The way we want to build this is by having a unison collaboration between ourselves or the AI models that we define and the client requirement on the business constraint that it has. And this is the step that we adhere to in every part of the pipeline. So it is never the case that a decision was made without being acknowledged to some of the limitations that the client have. To some extent, it might be even suboptimal, but we acknowledge that and introduce this to our systems in order for the end-to-end to be optimal and agreed upon in a way that makes sense and could build this trust in an ongoing cycle.
Okay. And then the other counter I have for you is, this is proprietary data built on legacy, which again, for me works. I'm making money. I'm making good money. I'm making good revenue, good margins. How do you get over the concern that as more airlines, which is great for you, as they keep adopting Fetcherr, how do I know I'm not losing proprietary information that I'm feeding into what you are calling your glass box? Mm-hmm. Is it glass enough for me to see other airlines? Is it, how does this all work?
It's yet another great question. What we make sure that data is never shared between clients. So while there is a glass box, it is only a glass box in the context of the client itself. Data is never shared between clients, nor for training or for inference of our large market model. And regardless, it is always adhered to the best practices of cloud infrastructure. On top of that, I want to emphasize that market aggregates are the only information that is fed into the model. It is never about individual purchase intent or the individual attributes of historical prices or purchases. So it's something that is very important to us.
No, that's reassuring to hear, I think, if you're an airline. Okay, Ada, let's move on to you. Your background spans computer science, physics, machine learning. How did this journey lead you to solving problems at Fetcherr?
Yeah, so over the years, I've done quite a lot of things, but I think that one key tool that resonates is how to use artificial intelligence to solve a problem. And I think that all of the research and the development work that I've done over the, whether it's academia, working in smaller or larger startups that has nothing to do with airline, all of the things I learned together here at Fetcherr are now populating into something that I would call a full-fledged utilization of the research experience and the development research experience that I have done. Because at the end of it all, it starts from what is the problem that we're solving, and when there's data involved, it is always the case that AI and machine learning could be utilized. It is just a matter of how you formulate the problem and how you make a meaningful solution that utilizes data in order to make those insights, right? So it is really it's not very relevant what was the area. And I've been in robotics, I've been in air pollution, also doing research in academia. All of those build to what I'm doing today, which is actually utilizing AI to make meaningful impact that has actual business benefits. Yeah. So it was
well, I mean, you say something really salient again there, because actually in terms of career, and again, as we say, AI is everywhere. Yeah. And you're kind of looking at large scale world problems. I know you mentioned there about air pollution, what have you, but actually I think it's something to hit home with our audience as well in terms of your career, in terms of purpose, actually being able to deliver something at the end. We talk about in the industry, we're trying to get planes away. We're trying to get people away on travel, business, whatever the reason. We actually have an end purpose. Yeah. And actually you're resonating back there that actually no matter what I've done in the past, actually here I'm trying to actually deliver a solution,
exactly,
an end product, which makes it more fulfilling, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% agree.
Okay, so that's yourself. Now, Fetcherr, what's next in the journey? Where are you on that journey? What's coming up? What can we look forward to?
Yeah, so there are quite a lot of avenues for Fetcherr's future, and even things that happen right now. So we mentioned how the pinpoint or the problems that airline has stem outside or reach outside revenue. So what we're looking at Fetcherr is also how we could make benefit in inventory management, but also in network management. So that's like expanding the product offering that Fetcherr has for the airline industry outside revenue management. And there's a lot that goes into that. On top of that, it is also onboarding more and more clients from the airline industry. But having said that, and that, while I cannot disclose anything in particular, expanding into new verticals, because the underlying technology, the large market model, is agnostic to any product, because it is always based on decision making. And whatever the revenue or objective that you have, as long as you formulate it mathematically in a way that makes sense to make predictions, you would not need to rely on the fact that it is the pricing engine that sits at the end. Yeah. If you have a pipeline that is suitable for general purpose decision making, and you have the data to back it up for training purposes, then the downstream task is to be determined by the business objective that we have. Yeah. So it's expanding to new airlines, expanding the product offering within those airlines, but also expanding to new verticals where decision making in the era of artificial intelligence is needed. Yeah. This is where we're heading.
Okay, and again, we're here talking about aviation. My counter to that sounds great. You're developing deep learning, and you're learning a lot from what you're doing now. How do I make sure as an airline, my vertical stays front and center of your mind as Fetcherr?
I think that's a good question, because the concern might raise: will you be chasing the next reason where revenue would be the highest? So I could reassure you that the core focus of Fetcherr as a company is to serve its airline clients as the top priority. And while we are investigating a lot of research and a lot of development in other verticals, they will always first and foremost support the effort of the airline industry, whether if it's with our own clients or with the clients that we oversee.
Perfect. Yeah, no, and that's a valid concern, but I think you're right. The core of the business remains, which is actually about the management of that revenue. Okay, so we've talked about decision making already, commercial decision making. How do you see looking further forward with your research head on? How is AI shaping that commercial decision making in the next decade?
Yeah. So I think again it goes back to the area of trust. I think that over the upcoming years, more and more trust will be provided with those machine learning models, and as research advances, and we all see how explosive AI and research in artificial intelligence have been made. As long as the trust is increased, we see and we will see that AI takes over more and more decisions. The process would be much more automated, allowing to gather more opportunities of revenue. And once trust is being obtained, the sky is the limit, really, because the research is waiting to be applied, especially in legacy industries.
So before I move on to learning about your career, we like to do that here.
Yeah.
For me, hearing all this, when you're in the industry, it sounds so exciting. Yeah. We're on the cusp of improved decision making, more accurate decision making, better outcomes for customers. But if I'm a person sitting within the industry, looking, for example, if I'm a revenue management analyst, this is quite nerving. What does my future hold? What could my career look like going forward? How would you kind of address those people listening?
Yeah. So I think one key insight in that is we see analysts as a counterpart and not as something that is going to be replaced. Thinking of this coming from research and from code and so on, we understand right now that development in AI is not intended to replace the people, but to transition how they do optimal work. And when we understand that, the analyst that sits at the end of the decision making should look at it as an opportunity to replace the topics where he is the bottleneck, and utilize artificial intelligence to make more meaningful insight, to make more optimized predictions, and not to be replaced entirely, because his position will always be relevant as the person who approves the decision, rejects it, and finds some time to do more meaningful work on which it's time, right?
Yeah. So I think you can probably, as we've been saying, AI is a tool that increases that productivity, but actually maybe, like you say, allows you to step back and actually look at things holistically now. Whereas you're focused on, it could be a flight, a route. You're actually now looking at it maybe from a network, or what products are needed going forward with AI supporting that and enhancing that.
At the end of the day, it's all a matter of scale. The analyst, however super analyst he may be. So I think it's a matter of when you want to price optimally in the most granular resolution, billions of flights a year, even 2 years into the future, it's just a matter of capability.
Yes.
An analyst will never be able to do so. So he's reluctant to utilize aggregations and make insights and make adjustment on bulk. This is something that will not be the case, and is not the case as we see with AI, that could make meaningful predictions on a very granular level that an analyst will never do.
Okay, cool. So now we're going to head to the flight path, which is your flight path. This segment here, I want to know a bit more about you, Hadar. Yep. What's been your proudest career moment so far?
Yeah. So I would definitely say, coming from research, one of the things that I'm very proud of is one of my publications. So in my advanced studies, I had a very good publication that was not only accepted to a top-tier AI conference that was actually hosted here in Singapore a year ago, but also that this research stemmed multiple research of new engineers and new researchers in academia that have built on top of the technology that we have offered and published in order to branch out to multiple other disciplinaries. So I think it was quite encouraging to come to this status of publications. This is something like Nature level, but for an AI kind of sub-niche. And not only that, but that other younger researchers could build on top of the research that I have conducted and with my acquaintances, and kind of even write more and more research, advancing the industry as a whole. So
Perfect. Well, I mean, it feels like you don't have enough grey hairs to be publishing things like this. So we'll definitely have to get the link for that and put it in the episode, because I think that's really valuable, especially for those interested in that research. So fantastic. Okay. Again, through your career, what's been the best piece of advice you've been given so far?
Yeah. So I think one good advice, and again, this is a recent advice that I got not too long ago again, in the era of AI, there's a lot of tools and there's a lot of confusion about which way should I be going. So I think that the advice back then was, in this vast, enormous kind of landscape of what should I pick, always try to trace back the most meaningful value to your company. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because one could, if I were to skim through the industry and the tool that I provided, that are provided for, not only for the airline industry, but in general, it's really hard to kind of find the optimal path. But I would say that when experience comes to shove, it is a matter of how you make minimal amount of decisions and make them impactful in order to not recollect what you need and kind of find another path. So it's about focus and kind of finding the value in a landscape like, infinite opportunities.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, what advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
Not too many years ago.
Yeah.
As I mentioned. But, I think, again, when coming from research, there's a tendency to, kind of pinpoint a specific area and think that this is how the entire future is going to look like. Now, I want to kind of if I were there, I would remind myself that try to understand the general principles that you learn with whatever topic you are focused on right now, whether it's being robotics or air pollution or aviation. It is the underlying principles, the underlying technology that I would say focus on that, and your future would be guaranteed. This is something I really needed in my recent years.
No, it's a very good point. What is the underlying desire there? What you're trying to address? What you're trying to find out? Fantastic. Okay. Now, again, I think is quite pertinent to you, because we normally ask people that have spent many years in aviation. You're obviously quite new to aviation with everything you're doing. Why should someone choose a career in aviation?
I think it's a good question, and I asked myself the very same question not too long ago. But one thing aviation offers is the full breadth of not only technology, but the full breadth of every industry. One could find him succeeding in a way that is meaningful. Now, whether you come from account management or research, or if you're a developer, aviation, at least in recent years, have transitioned into something that provides opportunity for whatever industry you're coming from. And while it does so, trying to solve a very deep and fundamental problem that not only is only interesting, but also provides value to its clients. It literally connects the world, and I think that is something that is very, encouraging to work on. And personally, I feel very inspired by providing this value to our customers.
I love that. For someone coming in new into the industry, that's reassuring for me, because, like you said, the reality is we're here connecting people, and we have a purpose in that. And again, it's about adding value, because, like you say, we have a lot of choice. Thankfully, we're not 50, 60 years ago where there was only one way to fly. There is so much choice, and actually to be able to add value along the way, whether it's a legacy carrier, premium, or whether it's low cost, and allowing someone to access travel when they couldn't. It's really heartening to hear that. That's what inspires you as well. Fantastic. Okay, so now we're going to move on to one of our last segments. It's a playful segment. It's called the quick fire round. So we don't want you to think too long. Very short and sharp. You can use a few more words if you like.
Okay.
But the quick fire round, we'll start very easy. Aviation, but aisle or window?
Oh, definitely window.
Definitely window. Okay, chicken or beef?
I'm a chicken guy myself.
Okay. Favorite airport?
Favorite airport, Changi, Singapore.
Oh, okay. A bit biased. We'll let that one go. So, we know your first job in aviation, so we won't ask that. Biggest influence on your career so far?
Oh, the biggest influence. I would say that, top executive in the AI industry, whether it's Mark Zuckerberg or even NVIDIA's CEO, they do not obviously come from aviation, but I think that they bring value that is easily transferable to an industries like the aviations, because they work on fundamental principles of developing the new era of artificial intelligence. And for us at Fetcherr, who sits at the core of AI, this has been fundamental in the work that we do. So
Fantastic. Okay. Earliest aviation memory?
Oh, not necessarily a good one. When I was 3 years old, I think that it was my first trip with my family. It was to Paris. I've been to Disneyland or Disney World, whatever they call it. This is the first time I took flight. Like I've been to a flight with the folks. But I was crying the entire trip. So it is memorable.
Not maybe not memorable for your parents.
Yeah, they suffered quite substantially.
Bless. Okay. Okay. Well, this is quite interesting because you've done other things. If you weren't in aviation today, what would you be doing?
I would probably be doing more applied research, maybe in academia.
Yeah.
This was my trajectory looking back a few years ago, and it has shifted to business. I think it was the right decision.
Yeah.
But if this wasn't the case, I would definitely pursue an academic background.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the way you're doing, the part of business will probably drag you in anyway, because it sounds like all your learnings would definitely apply.
Exactly.
Okay. Are you a lounge lizard or a last minute dasher when it comes to traveling?
I would say the former, definitely.
Yeah, you like to enjoy the lounge and the experience.
Take the time.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we've learned a lot about you, Hadar, but if there's one thing our audience didn't know about you, give us a fun fact that people wouldn't know about you.
Okay, I think that if you'll join me in a karaoke room, you will be quite satisfied with my vocals.
Oh, fantastic. No, we're in the right place for it, in the part of the world. We'll have to try this place. Okay, fantastic. Listen, I think a great conversation. It's fantastic to hear new people coming into the industry, people that we can learn from. I think that is really key, and particularly to understand how you are developing new spaces within the industry. So what Fetcherr's doing in terms of deep decision making within the aviation industry around pricing and revenue management, it's really exciting. I think we're going to definitely hear more from you guys in the future. So we look forward to hearing about that journey. And I think you've got some great partners already, which we'll get to learn about as we move forward as well. So really, really good. The last thing I want to ask you as part of our landing is, if our viewers took one thing away from our conversation, what should that be?
Yeah, so I actually want to recollect one of the points I've made earlier. You know, in a landscape of infinite opportunities about introducing technology into your business, especially in aviation, one needs to be very careful and very proactive in what are the tools that he is using, because ultimately, when understanding how competitive landscape shapes form and how utilization of market dynamics evolves, it is always the case that decision making with artificial intelligence is the right decision to make. So this is what I would like to end with.
Well, it's a great way to end, especially with what we were talking about. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, Hadar, for being so insightful, teaching us more about Fetcherr, but also the world of AI and how it is changing aviation, but beyond aviation as well. So definitely something for us to take away from that as well. So thank you very much. That is the end of our episode today. As always, we'll be bringing you more and more insightful guests just like this right here at the Flying High Club. Thank you very much. Keep flying high.
Bye-bye.